The price of Prometheus' fire. Ethel was not a man of great armies or royal lineage, but a scholar whose thirst for knowledge burned hotter than any forge. He lived in the city-state of Cygnus, a coastal marvel built on the marble bones of ancient mountains. The people of Cygnus, like all mortals, lived under the strict, watchful gaze of the Pantheon, the 12 immortal deities who ruled from the ethereal city of Olympus to Tyre. Each god held dominion over an aspect of the world, and the greatest decree was simple: know your place. Mortals were to worship, to toil, and never to seek the secrets reserved for the divine. Ethel, however, was obsessed with the Athelian matrix, the divine blueprint he believed governed all reality, the very code the gods used to run their cosmos. For 10 years, he lived in a subterranean study, illuminated by flickering whale oil lamps, translating the fragmented prophecies of forgotten seers and the hushed hymns of banned cults. His defiance wasn't a roar of rebellion, but a silent, relentless pursuit of understanding. His greatest discovery was the nature of Cronus' loom, the mechanism by which the god of time, Cronus, wove the future and enforced the divine limitations on mortal knowledge. Ethel realized the gods didn't just know everything. They actively suppressed the knowledge that would allow mortals to achieve true parity. "We are not clay, but locked vaults," Ethel murmured to his only companion, an aging, loyal scribe named Lysander. "They fear not our strength, but our sight. They fear our potential." Ethel's plan was audacious, bordering on suicidal. He needed to touch Cronus' loom, to steal a single thread of unknowing, the raw magical essence the god used to cloud mortal minds and enforce the unknowing. By studying it, Ethel believed he could create an anti-talisman, a focus point that would shield a single community from the god's thought suppression. The opportunity arose during the celestial alignment, a rare night when the borders between Olympus to Tyre and the mortal realm thinned to a gossamer veil. Armed with nothing but a silver-laced glove, a phial of concentrated stellar dust, and his own formidable intellect, Ethel climbed the spire of Astrakhan, the tallest temple in Cygnus, built to offer prayers to the sky. As the planets aligned, the very air crackled with divine energy. A shimmering, crystalline beam of light descended, a temporary bridge to the celestial city. Ethel activated a complex series of runes he had etched into the spire's peak, a temporary cloak of sensory confusion designed to make him appear as a stray current of air, a flicker of light, anything but a mortal man. He stepped onto the beam. The city of Olympus to Tyre was blindingly beautiful, an impossible architecture of light and sound. The loom was at its center, a monumental, glowing apparatus where strands of pure light, each representing a moment in time, were woven together. Cronus, a towering figure whose form shifted constantly between a primordial elder and a newborn infant, sat with his head bowed, directing the flow. Ethel moved with the precision of a master thief, heart hammering a frantic rhythm against his ribs. He plunged the silver-laced glove toward a single, faintly dark strand on the edge of the loom, a thread of unknowing. Just as his fingers closed around the prize, a voice boomed, a sound that cracked the very light of the city. It was Astraea, the goddess of divine order. She had seen him. Perhaps she always saw everything, and Ethel's cloak had only been a cruel joke. Ethel did not stop. He wrenched the thread free, a searing pain shooting up his arm, and plunged down, dropping from the spire and landing hard on the temple's plaza, the phial of stellar dust shattering around him and briefly blinding Astraea with a shower of artificial light. He had the thread, but his anonymity was gone forever. The retaliation was immediate, overwhelming, and terrifyingly personal. A week later, Ethel, Lysander, and the entire city of Cygnus were gathered in the main amphitheater. The sky itself seemed to darken, a ceiling of obsidian replacing the blue. The Pantheon appeared, not as the soft, idealized figures of temple murals, but as beings of raw, indifferent power. Astraea stood foremost, her face cold as glacial ice. Ethel of Cygnus, her voice resonated in the minds of every mortal present. You reached where you were forbidden. You sought the knowledge that keeps the stars in their paths and the oceans within their banks. You have attempted to unravel the very foundation of our divine right. Ethel stood tall, the stolen thread, now a small, throbbing coal in a silver locket, pressed against his chest. I sought only the truth, my lady, he said, his voice surprisingly steady. To unshackle the minds of men. To allow us to reach the potential you fear. Cronus stepped forward, his eyes burning with ancient fury. Fear, we feel only disappointment. You confuse governance with malice. You confuse limitation with oppression. The mortal mind cannot wield the truth of the cosmos. It would shatter you all into mad, gibbering dust. You, Ethel, are proof of the arrogance that must be contained. The discussion was brief, the verdict predetermined. The crime was Athelian hubris, the ultimate defiance. The punishment was decreed by Thanatos, god of the final end, and it was not death. Death, after all, was an end, a form of rest. Defiance of this magnitude required a statement, a punishment that would echo through eternity and serve as a constant, visible terror. You shall not be ended, scholar. Thanatos' voice was a dry rasp of bone on stone. You shall be defined by your crime. You desired knowledge. You shall have the consequences of that knowledge eternally, without recourse, without end. The punishment began instantaneously. First, Cygnus was annihilated. Not with fire or flood, but simply erased, popped out of existence as if it were a misplaced punctuation mark in the timeline. Lysander and all its people simply ceased to be. Ethel, however, remained. And he was given the total sight. He could now see the Athelian matrix. He could see Cronus loom. He didn't just know the secrets. He saw the raw, unfiltered, agonizing reality of the cosmos. He saw the inevitable heat death of the universe in a billion years, a cold, empty void waiting to claim all things. He saw the raw, chaotic, agonizing misery of every soul that had ever lived and died, their suffering recorded as static on the strands of Cronus' loom. He saw that the gods themselves were not benevolent rulers but merely engineers of the machine, terrified beings whose purpose was simply to keep the cosmic gears turning, lest the ultimate, unimaginable void rush in. He saw that his stolen thread of unknowing, the key to mortal salvation, was fundamentally useless. Mortal minds needed to evolve to accept the knowledge, and he had doomed his city by trying to force it. The gods had given him the ultimate prize, true knowledge. But without the ability to do anything with it, it became the ultimate prison. Astrea stood over him, her expression shifting from cold fury to something that looked unsettlingly like pity. The eternal punishment is not the pain, Ethel, she said, her voice soft now, devoid of divine booming. It is the truth that you are nothing. The truth that your rebellion was a speck, your sacrifice was useless, and that the only true mercy we offered was the unknowing we maintained. You will live forever, paralyzed by the sight of the inevitable, the raw, the horrifying truth of all existence. Ethel was exiled to the shattered shore, a wasteland where the edges of the mortal realm met the void. The gods ensured he could not die, could not be harmed, and, most cruelly, could not go mad, for madness would be an escape from his sight. His punishment became his eternal existence. He sits on the shore, a figure of bone and sinew, ageless and unmoving. In his hand, he perpetually clutches the silver locket containing the useless, dim thread of unknowing. He watches as empires rise and fall, seeing the exact moment of the destruction woven into the timeline years before the event occurs, unable to warn, unable to interfere. He watches the gods of Olympus titter, seeing their weary faces, their endless, thankless task of maintenance, and understands that they, too, are prisoners of their power. He watches mortals, who still look to the skies with desperate prayers, shielded from the terrifying, cosmic truth he is forced to witness, and he feels a pity so vast it is a physical weight crushing his chest. Ethel, the scholar who defied the gods, did not suffer the traditional eternal agonies of fire, ice, or endless labor. His punishment was purely intellectual, perpetual, inescapable awareness. He is the statue of warning, not for what he did, but for what he saw. His mind is a crystal basin reflecting the entire, terrifying cosmos, and he is forced to stare at his reflection forever. The ultimate price of trying to steal Prometheus' fire and learn the secrets that were never meant for man.